السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. رمضان مبارك. كل جميعا بإذن الله تعالى. This is your brother Nafis Abu Zaid, and welcome to our 5-minute wake up. Here with my co-host
Isa Abu Isa. Assalamu alaikum.
Rahmatullah. Continuing, alhamdulillah, with our beloved brother, extensive research he did, and work that he put together on the cult and characteristics amongst specific group that have formed up and call themselves Salafis here in the West. Alhamdulillah, we have reached up to chapter 2, and that deals with the definition of cults and Hizbiyyah. The brother Isa is going to begin to read, inshallah.
Chapter 2, the definition of cults and Hizbiyyah. The definition of cults and partisanship. A cult, a structured group, most of whose members demonstrate unquestioned loyalty to a dynamic leader. Just the examples, for example, Charles Manson, Jim Jones, or some of the Sufi cults in Shia, because you'll usually find the people who speak very well, they speak very loud, they have good leadership qualities. Those are like some examples of a dynamic leader. The cult leader governs most, if not all, aspects of the lives of his or her followers, often insisting that they break all ties with the world outside of them. Such groups are usually thought of in terms of religion, although other types of cults can and do exist: political, commercial, self-help, and counseling.
Like the trend that happened with Dr. York, which changed his name a couple of times, Dr. Malachi. These are some more examples for dynamic leaders, cults, and so forth. You can continue.
Exactly. The fundamental principles that define a cult are the following. Followers of an exclusive system of religious beliefs and practices. 2. Obsessive, especially faddish devotion to or veneration for a person, principle, or thing. 3. A religion or religious sect generally considered extremist or false.
Now it's important to highlight, alhamdulillah, that these particular principles that define a cult. Now, when talking about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who devote themselves to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and strictly to only Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not considered to be a cult. Even though some people say what they say about Muhammad and his followers, they call them Muhammadiyya.
Muhammadiyya.
They say that they're Muhammadiyya. We do not worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Muhammad's word is only made final and restricted and absolute only by that of the judgment of Allah Azza wa Jal. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ الرَّسُولِ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهِ. Whoever obeys the messenger obeys Allah. Whoever obeys the messenger obeys Allah. So any person who follows Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he or she knows that their following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is based off the command of Allah Azza wa Jal. And by obeying Muhammad, they know they are obeying Allah. So that becomes clear. It's not as if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came up with a set of rules or set of principles, and we followed those particular rules and we made ourselves devoted to him only.
So it's from Wahi.
Yeah, so it's not a cult. Another thing we want to bring up, why do you think that the brother here placed this as a chapter, talking about cult? Okay, and why you think he's explaining about cult? Because we want to make sure we don't have these certain characteristics. No one, as Sheikh Muqbil rahmatullah ta'ala mentioned, that if anyone you're going to bond follow or is going to make taqleed of, it should be Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one should have a absolute devotion or obedience outside of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one should have that. And if you find yourself referring back to the statements of so and so over the statements of Allah and His Messenger, then this is like a telltale sign that you want to be careful with that. And alhamdulillah, we do use the ulama. For as Sheikh Salih Fawzan Hafidullah said, that we use the aqwal of the ulama, the statements of the ulama. We use it as a means to understand the text. We don't use it as absolute. Sheikh Salih Fawzan said that the statements of the ulama cannot be used as dalil. It cannot be used as evidence. So, for example, if you might catch yourself in a debate with another Muslim, and you saying, I'm telling you, Aki, this particular thing is wajib, or this particular thing is obligatory, and the brother say to you, well, what's your proof? Sheikh so-and-so said. That's not proof.
That's not proof.
Now, if you're saying that, I'm going to refer back to this alim who's skilled in that particular field, and he brought his proof that such and such issue is wajib based upon this evidence that he brought, then that would be okay. But not in terms of just relying on the statement of the scholar himself.
Without the proof attached to it.
Exactly. So this is definitely important. Also, another thing you want to understand about these particular fundamental principles here that he mentioned that distinguish a cult is that the followers of an exclusive system of religious belief and practices. And we know they don't have to just be restricted to religious affairs, but however, meaning that there's a set of codes or a set of principles that has been developed and people follow.
Man-made.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but the only set of principles that we should be following is only laid down by two paths. That's Kitab and Sunnah. That is the Book of Allah, and that is the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we know that Allah Jalla wa Ala has made, as Sheikh Al-Albani, Hafidhullah, mentioned, Rahmatullah ta'ala alayh, that Allah has made Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the shari', the explainer of the Quran, when he said, "Inna anzalna ilayka dhikr litubayyina lin-nas ma nuzzila ilayhim." Al-ayah. Allah Jalla wa Ala said, "Indeed, we have revealed to you the dhikr," meaning the Quran, as it comes in the Tafsir Ibn Kathir, and we made you to what? Litubayyina, in order to clarify to the people what has been sent down to them. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the shari'. Also obsessive, especially faddish devotion or veneration for a person, principle, or thing. Now, many people don't take this as being extremely dangerous, but it is. For example, individuals, they become so obsessive and only taking from a certain person or a certain particular group of people their knowledge, no matter who they be. Whether you say, okay, for example, I only take from Sheikh Salih Fawzan, and that anything else outside of the durus of Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhullah, I don't take from. I only take exclusively from him. This is the scholar that I trust, I respect, I deem, I love, so I'm only going to take his statements and no one else. This is a problem.
It's obsessive.
This becomes obsessive, and this becomes a problem. This is not even permissible in the religion. So how much more so a person say, okay, I only take the statements of a student. And many of us, for some reason, I remember we sort of we cringe on the people we learn from, and it's natural. People that we learn our knowledge from.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, a lot of us, what we do is we start to rely on that particular person too much for our understanding of our religion, for the way that we should practice. So we find ourselves always saying, so-and-so said. So-and-so said.
I'm sitting with so-and-so.
I'm sitting with so-and-so. And it's never the Prophet ﷺ said.
No, it's not.
Or, Allah Jalla wa Ala said. Nor do we don't even rely remembering the verses. So-and-so could have brought an issue up and he could have mentioned the evidence, but we don't remember the evidence. We remember what his statement was. We just refer back to so-and-so. I'm telling you, so-and-so is reliable. This is a problem.
We don't even say the companion said it anymore. We don't hear the companions in the chain of proof anymore.
But look what the companions would do to block and protect themselves from this. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu has reported that when he came out of his house, he saw that there was a large crowd following him. What would he do? He would sit there and remind them. He said, maybe, and we all know the famous dua, may Allah Jalla wa Ala forgive me for that which you think of me, right?
No.
You know what I mean? And make me better. Huh?
And what you
than what you do if you think of me. Forgive me what you don't know of me. Because he didn't want a large crowd following. Some of the Salaf, they would say that if they come out and they see that there are more people in their class, more 2 or 3 or 4 people in their class, he would close his book, grab his shoes, and leave. This is what he would do, not to create a following. They would go to extreme lengths to protect themselves from having this veneration and this devotion to other than that of the Quran and the Sunnah.
So you're saying, for example, numbers don't prove that your da'wah is successful, because the prophets, some of them come with none people on the day of judgment. Some of the Anbiya come with 1 person on the day of judgment. So this thing of wanting more people in the class or thinking that's proof that that's a proof of success. The Anbiya were successful whether or not people followed them or not.
No, that's looking at it from the other angle. But the angle I'm looking at it from the point of protecting yourself from having devotee followers outside of that of Quran and the Sunnah. So the point I'm saying is this: the scholars would go at great length, like Imam Ahmed. Okay, so the people wouldn't overpraise him. The people wouldn't overly praise him. The people wouldn't set him up on a pedestal and say, all we're going to do is take from Imam Ahmed. You understand what I'm saying? This is why the scholars, they explain that there are two types of madhab. You have what we call madhab al-shaksi, and then you have madhab al-istilahi. Okay, you have a madhab where it's a personal madhab of the particular madhab that is built based upon. No. Like Imam Ahmed himself has a certain way and a set of principles how he did things. That was sheks.
That was it. Yes, what he did.
And then you had the madhab of Imam Ahmed itself. All right?
That his students developed
after him with a set of rules, a set of principles of how he would approach certain affairs, right? That don't mean necessarily that Ibn Ahmed
agreed with all those
principles.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And then people will go at great length. And this is why it's important that you stop people. As Sheikh Al-Albani is reported to what? When the individual was overly praising him, he started to cry. And he stopped him.
Sheikh Uthaymeen too.
Sheikh Uthaymeen as well. Many of the scholars, they go to great lengths to stop the people from devoting themselves and getting on this level of, surrounding yourselves around a personality or a place or a thing. We have to be extremely careful when we find ourselves saying, well, if you don't go to that particular masjid, then this is a sign or indication that you are not upon clarity. Yeah. You are not upon the sunnah, based upon this masjid. And that right there becomes scary, because now what you're doing is you're overlooking the fact that Allah Jalla wa Ala said what? What did he say about the masjid? He said, "Kul inna masajida lillahi fala tad'u ma'allahi ahadan." Right? So Allah Jalla wa Ala says in Surah Al-Jinn that say that the masajid, the houses, are for Allah alone, strictly for Allah. Not for Abu Bakr, not for Abu Zayd, it's for Allah Jalla wa Ala. That's number one. Then Allah comes after that and say, فَلَا تَدْعُوا. Now do not make invocation or dua or any worship to other than Him. So letting you know that the places of worship, which is the masjids, are for Allah, and that worship should be only restricted to Him.
So it's not a devotion to somebody's fad or somebody's name.
It's not a devotion to those things, and this is important. But sometimes we become lackadaisical and we don't think about what we're saying or the harm of what we're saying. So we start saying statements like, I only go to such and such masjid.
No.
And you say, okay, alhamdulillah, I know this masjid to call to that which is correct. I know this masjid to pump the correct information. I trust these brothers.
No.
I trust the knowledge that they are bringing forth. However, I find myself saying I only go to this masjid. Now I have placed this restriction here.
SubhanAllah. Well, another thing will be obsessive. If, for example, you say, if a people don't love a particular group of people, if you don't love this name or this name or this name, then you're not a person of the Sunnah. This is obsessive. This is faddish. This is devotion to names and places that have no place in Islam whatsoever. And also, using these type of statements that the Salaf used, these not even the same meaning. You don't even know even the meaning of the Salaf when they said, if you don't love so-and-so, you don't love so-and-so, you don't love so-and-so, and love so-and-so. But to make that statement today by particular people today, this is very obsessive. It's faddish. It's devotion. Veneration.
It could be taken out of context.
Exactly.
The ulama of the past, when they would do that, the ulama, meaning the scholars, would explain why they would do that. And you understand, because in certain regions, in certain areas, there was known of being certain ideology or concepts or groups of people that follow different things.
Exactly.
So they would test them in terms of, you want to know what those people are upon, then all you have to do is mention Abu Bakr, for example. Some people are like the Shiites, they don't like Abu Bakr.
Exactly.
So, if you're in Kufa or if you're in so forth, then you mention this. Also, they would say that if you find a person having love for Imam Ahmed, or you find a person having love for this because of his due diligence and striving to the Sunnah, he will be upon that. Now, as far as what our brother is saying, he is alluding to, can now a present day beginner student come along and say, okay, if you're in so-and-so region and you find a person loving this particular person, then know that he's upon the Sunnah. I don't know if you can apply that to yourself. First of all, we're not even on the same manzala of those particular Salaf and those scholars of the past and the great contribution that they gave to the Sunnah and the examination that they went, the trials they went to in the Mihna. Like Imam Ahmed went through a Mihna. He went through a great trial. I don't know how many of us went through a great trial that saved the Ummah from going to one way. Abu Bakr went through a Mihna when they didn't want to give up the zakat.
Exactly.
And saving the ummah for going from another way. So you have to look and say, okay, can we say that about a beginning student of knowledge? And I'm going to say this. Yes, a beginner student of knowledge. Because the students of knowledge that are at a level where they're not at the beginner and they're advanced, then they are the ulama. They are the ulama. I call them, to me, I deem them to be the ulama. the people that reach that level of being a true student of knowledge. And if you want to refer back to that, then just go back to the statement of Hassan al-Basri when he defined a scholar different from a student of knowledge.
No.
And you'll start seeing the levels of us, and really in regards to us being students. The brother's going to continue now with the definition of hizbiyya.
No. Barakallah for that clarity on that. Definition of hizbiyya. Hizbiyya comes from the three-letter word in Arabic, which is hazaba. The word hizb means a small group. Sheikh Muqbil, rahimahullah, said, hizbiyya is allegiance to everyone who agrees with you and dissociation from all those who don't. And we see that's what's particularly happened in our region and other regions, that if you disagree, if you agree 100% with a particular group, particular people, then you're not refuted or you're a part of that particular group. If you disagree on one, two, a half a thing or one thing, two things, you disagree, then you're considered not to be Salafi. And we see that what Sheikh Muqbil said. And he just
What's
said
some of the statements that come from this? Like either you with us or not.
I mean, for example, like I called the George Bush manhaj. You know, may Allah guide him. He says that either with us or you're against us. He made this statement when 9/11 happened. I remember. Funny part is I remember in Star Wars when Darth Vader made the same statement. It's funny, but he did. He said, "You either with us or against us." So you'll find these statements that if you either all the way with us or you all the way against us. May Allah help us. Tahazzub means to unite for a specific cause or purpose. Ahzab are those who united against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are two kinds of hizbiyya. Praiseworthy hizbiyya. This is what represents the Muslim body as they obey the Muslim ruler. They are the party of Allah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Al-Mujaddila, verily it is the party of Allah. They will be successful. And just to add a hadith to that, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever sees from his leader something he doesn't like, فَلْيَصْبِرْ. And whoever separates, فَرَقَ الْجَمَاعَ شُبْرًا, which is from the wrist to the top of the fingers, then he dies the death of the days of Jahiliyyah. And that's just one hadith. Many of them, and the Sheikh Muqsim Al-Luq was explaining to me, most of the hadith dealing with obeying the leader is mutawattir. Most of them, if not all of them.
Meaning they're recurrent.
They're recurrent. And it's impossible that they all agree upon Allah.
Companions related to another group of companions, related. So it makes it impossible for it to be what? Based upon Allah. No.
Right? And in Jama'ah, as the Prophet ﷺ says, تَزِلُ الْفَرْقَ كُلَّهَا, meaning if there is no leader, then you leave alone all the other groups fighting for power. But in this particular hadith, it was said that go into the earth. If there's chaos happening, go into the earth and find a leader, even if he beats your back and take your wealth. So
it's definitely important that you keep the main body
exactly
together under one leader.
And if he's a criminal.
Even if he's a criminal, to that point. It's definitely important that you keep the main body what? Under one leader.
Exactly. Okay. It is a must for the Muslims to adhere to this party, practices and beliefs, and defend them and advise them. Blameworthy hizbiyya. This occurs when one deviates from the Muslim body to another group. By following desires, they fall into division and separation from legislated guidelines. This is the party of shaitan. They are identified as such since they split away from the party of Allah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they are the party of shaitan. Verily, it is the party of shaitan that will be the losers. So the mujaddila.
Before the brother continue, I want to go back to praiseworthy hizbiyya, because we need to understand that the word hizb, as he gave the different definitions of the words hizb, but we also need to understand that the hizb of Allah Jalla wa Ala is the praiseworthy his, that the word his can be applied, it can be applicable. We understand that there is a group that's a party of the believers, meaning the believers are a party of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
No.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna hizballahi humul muflihun. Indeed, the hizb of Allah, they are the muflihun. Then Allah Jalla wa Ala, before in the same surah, he mentioned who the hizb are, and that the victory of those who believe, and then from amongst his messengers and those who believe, he would give them victory. He would give the messengers victory.
No.
And it's important to understand that the messengers and the believers are those who, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, are those who are the party of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Now, who is the party of the shaitan? Anyone who isn't a party of Allah. Anyone who are in a part of the believers. Anyone who are in a part of the messengers, the righteous, the salihin, right, the martyrs, for etc. Anyone that's not a part of that will fall under what we call the Hizb Shaitan. So there are only two parties.
Subhanallah.
There's the Hizbullah and there's the Hizb Shaitan.
SubhanAllah. So
Right.
you were saying the Muqtadi'een and the Kuffar will be from...
They will fall under
The
Hizb
Hizb
Shaitan.
Shaitan.
They wouldn't fall under Hizb
Hizbullah.
Allah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Hizbullah, Jalla wa ala, Allah Azza wa Jalla made that clear who the Hizb is, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. From the verse's reference, it is understood that Hizbiyya is splitting and grouping that can either be commended or condemned. It is required that the Muslim holds fast to the party of Allah, identified in the quoted text as Hizbullah. The foundations of this party are identified in the Manhaj as-Salafi, the way in which a person truly follows footsteps of the Prophet and his companions sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The pseudo-Salafi is similar to a cult member, as he has an exclusive system of beliefs and practices which separate the Muslims. Additionally, he has an extreme regard for those principles. Sheikh Muqbil rahimahullah said, our scholars in their books named others as Ahlul Sunnah and As-Salafi. Needless to say, the affair is like everything else. The actually practice of the name, you say you are Ahlul Hadith and you have no knowledge of Hadith. You claim that you are Ahlul Sunnah or you have no desire to study the Sunnah or act by it. You declare I am Salafi, all the while you call to division and separation between the Muslims. Subhanallah.
So yeah, that before you just moving on, I want to stop and make some points. I got to go back
Exactly.
and make some points. I don't want to move on fast. There was a lot that was said.
Exactly.
There was a lot that was said. They need to be digested and they need to be explained. Alhamdulillah, going back just a little bit, just to touch on some of the stuff that was mentioned. The foundations of this party are identified in the Minhaj as-Salafi, the way in which a person truly follows footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. The pseudo-Salafi is similar to a cult member. Okay, now the brother he was able to bring the definition of what is a cult, and he was able to bring the definition of Hizbiyya. Now he is going to make a contrast between the pseudo-Salafi, and I want you to don't get this confused. Not with the one who truly adhere to the Dawat al-Salafi upon those two principles we mentioned earlier. He know who the Salaf is, and he follow exactly what their methodology is. However, the pseudo-Salafi is the one who takes on the cloak of Salafiyya, the one who is actually basically fraudulent, the one who is not real. So the pseudo-Salafi is similar to a cult member, as he has an exclusive system of beliefs and practices which separate the Muslims, because his belief and his practices are based on principles that cannot be found in the Book and the Sunnah. It's based on principles that can be tied to a person, place, or a thing. And this can be seen and demonstrated in a lot of the actions that we have seen, especially in our communities, and we can't ignore it. We cannot act shy. It had recently come to us that a sister, she had placed on social media the response of someone, and I'm going to mention this because unfortunately this particular thing is something that is very real, and this is something that we're not making up, and this article was actually produced about 3 years ago.
SubhanAllah.
So I want you to see, honestly, the extent of
These fake principles.
the extent of how real this is.
Yeah, the cult.
This
mentality.
particular, the cult mentality. This particular, what happened was the sister, she posted up, Assalamu alaikum, just a reminder, we need to be careful of what we say and is haram, and it is more than one Salafi masjid. This religion is easy. We don't want to oppress one of each other. This was her post. So she posted that up. I know you can't really see it clear. However, the response was, Assalamu alaikum, fear Allah. If Somali is teaching, it is not permissible to attend another class or khutbah if you are Salafi.
SubhanAllah.
Now, we're not focusing on any names. Just the understanding of this particular person here. He said, one, told her to fear Allah, as if she was doing something wrong with her statement by mentioning that there are other individuals or other massages that you can go to, but that's not the point. The point is the mentality of the person who responded. He said, if there is a particular person who is teaching, if that person is teaching, it is not permissible. Now he made something haram, the same thing that she was talking about. It is not permissible now. Only one that can make something haram is Allah and His Messenger. No one else. But it's not permissible to attend another class or khutbah if you are Salafi. Now let's examine this. Who is the Salafi he's talking about? Is this the pseudo Salafi, or is this the actual Salafi. Because if we go back to the actual Salafi, which is based upon the two principles, knowing who the Salaf is, okay, and then understanding what their methodology is. We will not find that in the methodology of the Salafi. You will never find any Salafi or hear truly to the Dawah to Salaf saying, don't go to this particular person class, and if you don't go to this class, you're off and you're not Salafi.
So you didn't hear somebody saying if Sheikh bin Baz was giving a class, it was haram to go to another class?
Yeah, you can't go. You'll never hear that.
You never.
And not even saying Sheikh bin Baz, you just never hear even going back to the Salaf.
Yeah.
You will never hear the Tabi'een talk like that. You know what I mean?
Sayyid
ibn Musayyib, don't go to Mujahid.
No.
You will never hear nothing like that. Abdullah ibn Abbas giving a class, don't go to Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud giving a class, don't go to so-and-so. So this is something that's not. This is scary, brothers and sisters. Because some people think, well, y'all making this stuff up. Y'all just attacking the brothers. Y'all focus on things that's not important. No, this is actually have saturated and took over our community. That to the point where as though we believe that if we don't go to a certain masjid, that we don't take from a certain individual, then our Salafi is in question.
We don't check in.
No.
These are false principles that he's talking about. That's part of a code.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to agree on one thing that the brother did say right. If you are a pseudo-Salafi, he didn't put the word pseudo there, but I'm going to put it there. If you are a pseudo-Salafi, then yeah, you shouldn't go to no other masjid that if the particular person is teaching, you should only go to those places. Why? Because you are a pseudo-Salafi. Now understand what I'm saying. If you are the one who had put on the cloak of Salafiyah, if you are following the true Salafiyah, then this wouldn't apply. You know that this type of statement right here is fanaticism. This is what we're talking about. This is fanaticism. This is a high level of fanaticism. A person saying, for example, even if an individual say, I'm going to go to Masjid Ibn Taymiyyah.
Yeah.
And I like those brothers. I like what them brothers are doing. I like the information that they're pushing out. But I'm only going to go to that masjid and no other masjid. We say, la. That's incorrect.
La.
That is incorrect. We do not respect that.
Nope.
We do not enjoin that.
Nope.
We do not call to that. And we dissociate ourselves from that type of understanding because that's not the understanding of the Dawah to Salaf.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah al-Azim. Inshallah. This is where I wanted to bring that. That was a real live example showing you that what we're facing, that this brother is on point when he's talking about a cult. When he talks about a cult.
And they have systems and they have principles that are made up. There are principles. You don't go to this masjid, you're not Salafi. If you don't come to these classes, you're not Salafi. Where's these principles from Salafiyah itself?
Or the principle what? The people are known with the people. This is what they say. The people are known to be with the people. Yes, the statement is true from one sense, but from another sense, you can't be guilty by association.
Naturally, you're doing a bathroom and have a collect.
I happen to be in a marketplace, and then there is a known mubtadi', which in our cases we don't know too many known mubtadi's, but there is a known mubtadi'. That's just for example. There is a known mubtadi' in the same market that I am, and we happen to be in the same line purchasing our goods.
And he's talking to
and he gave me the salams, and then I looked at him and I'm talking to him, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And someone said, well, I saw so and so with so and so. That right there is a clear indication that this individual Salafi is in question.
I'll give you a real live example. The Masjid Wasatiyah, where our brother Ali Davis and Abu Sajid teach, and they give the khutbah sometimes, right? I'm in there for Jum'ah. So I'm coming out for Jum'ah. I had a brother who's known in the community, in the pseudo-Salafi community. He sees me there. I see him. He doesn't greet me. He turns his face from me. But then later on that day, I hear that, I'm taking knowledge from Wasatiyah. I seen a brother in Jum'ah Wasatiyah. Well, how you see me there if you wasn't there? So what I'm saying is that look at this mentality that they consider that masjid to be a masjid of Dara or a masjid that's upon innovation, not a Salafi masjid, quote unquote. So the fact that he's seen me in there praying or see me doing Jum'ah or see me walk past it, I'm now associated with that masjid now in their mind of the innovation of that place and the fact that it's not Salafi, quote unquote, that now I'm associated to it because of that false principle of association.
Guilty by association. This is a principle that they have developed that is not from Salafiyah.
No.
Guilty by association is not from Salafiyah. An individual, for example, recently, I just tell you, just happened. You can go look at it. Sheikh Salih Fawzan just visited Sheikh Eid al-Qadr.
Nah.
Now, everyone knows that Sheikh Eid al-Qadr got major issues, that the ulama have devoted time and attention, and they have addressed them on these issues, and they have refuted on these issues. But our beloved Sheikh, Dr. our elder, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhahullah, he actually went and visited this particular Sheikh in the hospital. Now, some people will say, well, why is he visiting a known muqtada or a known person who is a misguided caller and so forth, right? No one attacked the Sheikh Salih Fawzan for that.
No.
Except these simple-minded individuals. I give you another example. Sheikh Salih Fawzan also, in his talks, in his classes, and when he go visit the people, what do you have in his hands?
Dhikr beads.
He has dhikr beads. And he's constantly doing dhikr beads, with dhikr beads. All right? We have someone see us with a pair of dhikr beads or someone so forth, they were automatically guilty by association.
You're an innovator now.
You're an innovator, or by the fact that you're using something that they don't know to be foreign, but you can't do that. We have to be extremely careful. Is what the brother is trying to say. The reason and intent behind, we spoke to the brother, why he came up with this this research in this article is not to attack anyone. It's just to get us back to really following Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You want to give any blind devotion, then do it to the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one on the face of this earth is better than him. As Imam Malik said that any person's statement can be what? Accepted or rejected. Illa hada sabr. I mean, sahibu qabr. Or he said, illa sahibu had al-qabr. Except for this individual who was in the grave, because he was in Medina at the time, in the Prophet's masjid, and was pointing to the Prophet's grave. So no one, that means no one, even Imam Malik himself, no one's statement can be accepted or rejected. And we got to get back to that.
No.
We can't use tactics of scaring one another with men. You need to stop. I'm going to call Sheikh so-and-so. These type of understanding is not that.
I'm going to call the brothers on you.
No, what about fear Allah? Taqillah.
What about fear Allah? None.
Fear Allah. Fear Allah, akhi. وقال الله عز وجل وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال الصحابة وفهم الصحابة. These things we say, they're like beautiful slogans. We say this as cloaks. Yeah, this is what we follow, but
some of it contradicts Tawheed.
We don't follow Tawheed. I mean, not Tawheed, we don't follow the Salaf.
In anything.
How? Because if that was the case, how can you say so-and-so, his position, his understanding is the best understanding to take? Cave.
Subhanallah.
Over Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
You know what else is scary? Salafi, if they want to know, like Sheikh Muhammad Best Move brought us, is three main principles. It's either you worship Allah alone with our partners, we hear and obey those in authority over us, the Muslim leaders, not the Imam of the Masjid, the political leader that runs the country, the Muslim lands, and we warn against bid'ah and its people. Now those principles have sub-principles that come underneath them. So when you say somebody's not Salafi, you now the criterion of him being on that is his position with those three principles. Because his tazkiyah, the greatest of tazkiyah is what he's teaching. If he's teaching and those principles he's in line with those principles, then the man is somebody who's on the da'wah to Salafi, even if he never says it. Even if you never hear him say it, you never heard him personally say it, he's sticking to those principles right there, then we know that's the tazkiyah. We ask Allah to help us.
And then the statement of Sheikh Muqbil rahimahullah, he said, our scholars in their books name others as Ahlul Sunnah and as Salafi. Needless to say, the affair is like everything else. The actual practice of the name. We don't focus on the inscriptions. Wala ibra. We don't focus on the da'wah, the claims. We focus on the practice of that particular name. How are they living up to that name? What are their actions? Let's look at that. You say you are Ahlul Hadith and you have knowledge about, and you have no knowledge about Hadith. You claim that you are Ahlul Sunnah while you have no desire to study the Sunnah or act by it. You declare, I am Salafi. All the while, you call to division and separation between the Muslims.
SubhanAllah.
And calling to division and separation of Muslims, we said before, we'll say it again, it's not just by way of tongue. You don't have to say, well, I'm literally telling you I'm calling away. You can do it by ways of certain principles that you have developed that's not found in the Book of Allah and the Sunnah. Those type of principles is, I'm telling you, Aki, these individuals are unclear. There is no such thing of this unstatement ever found.
Salafi and unclear.
With the Salaf.
Yeah, what's unclear? Somebody's Salafi,
no,
how's
honestly,
he unclear?
that statement.
Yeah, unclear. Just without the word Salafi.
Majhul,
yeah.
All of that stuff can be found in the science of Hadith. For those people who specialize, not my field. You can find those terminologies there. But this word unclear, as Sheikh Falah has addressed this issue, right? You won't find it. You won't find that this word unclear. Yet this person is unclear. He's Salafi, but he's unclear.
It's a
Where did you develop from?
It's an oxymoron. They don't even Salafi. Being Salafi and unclear doesn't even go in the same sentence.
Yeah, because Salafiyya, based if he's really upon Salafiyya, he's upon clarity. So how he can be clear and unclear at the same time?
SubhanAllah.
But what it actually means and what is meant by it's unclear, it's mean again. Go back again to what he said. All allegiance. Okay? What he mentioned here, that any allegiance to a group, right? That don't differ or disagree with you. That's what it means. He's unclear because he doesn't agree with us.
The statement of Sheikh Mubin when he said his biyya is that you totally agree, you accept the people that agree with you 100%, and you dissociate yourself from those who don't agree with you 100%.
So think about that.
That's what it means
when you say a person is unclear. No, actually, them brothers are unclear. That place is unclear. Why? Because they don't agree with us 100%.
That's what it is. And you don't pray, and then you'll have separating the Muslims, not praying behind the Muslims, telling people not to pray at the masjid, stuff like that. When you hear your bond call, you walk past the masjid, you clearly see the brothers praying, but who's leading the salat, you won't pray behind, because with this principle you're using, they're unclear. So it's not permissible. Now the new principle comes from that. It's not permissible to pray behind them. Even though we have the principle from Ahlul Sunnah, it's permissible to pray behind the Mubtadi'een.
The actual Mubtadi'een. Actually, Imam Ahmed went so far to say that a person that your prayer behind the Mubtadi'een, if you go back in Jumu'ah and pray at home,
that's a bid'ah.
Then you become and that's a bid'ah.
That's a bid'ah. Subhanallah.
You know what I mean? Sheikh Islam Taymiyyah got a whole chapter dealing with this in detail, praying behind the innovator. We just want to be careful. I think we lost our way by not really sticking to the Kitab wa Sunnah and its clear understanding. So inshallah ta'ala, this will sum up the second chapter by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Stay tuned for the next 5-minute wake up, which is next week. Inshallah, we will deal with the chapter 3, inshallah ta'ala, which is the origin of partisanship and its social impact. And also just reflect. We want to challenge you to think. The author wants you to think for yourselves. Honestly think on what some of the things that he mentioned here. What is a cult? And ask yourself, are you really doing an act because you know there's an ayat associated to it and there's a hadith? Or are you doing the act because this is what is the society doing, or the norm doing, or it's the fad, or it's this group, or this particular people, or particular person is telling us to do these things? You want to be careful. Make sure you're doing the ayat based off the Quran and Sunnah. As Sheikh Taymiyyah rahmatullah ta'ala alayhi mentioned, 2 individuals do an act. One may perform wudu, and he performed wudu out of custom. And the other one performed wudu based off of the ayat and the hadith. Which one is correct?
Subhanallah.
You know what I mean? So just think. I just want you to think, inshallah. Whatever we said that was incorrect was definitely from myself and shaitan. What we said correct is from Allah Jalla wa Ala. Azza wa Jal. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Have a blessed Ramadan, inshallah.
Ameen. Ameen.